What's good, guys? It's your boy CS back with another one. In this video, I'm going to be talking about gaps in real time so you can fully understand how the US market is the catalyst for movements of charts, stocks, indices, commodities, forex, crypto. In order to translate what's going on with crypto, we need to understand what's going on in the stock market because there is a heavy correlation. It's not 100%, it's not 95%, but I would say it's a high 80 to 90%, as in 8 to 9 times out of 10, Bitcoin will follow the SPX. And so why are these gaps so important? So can you see here, I've got the S&P 500. And I've got the S&P 500 CFD, which I circled as Forex.com in the Telegram chat. See this one here? This one's moving, which is an aftermarket chart. Just like this, which is the Dow Jones. And you need to look at my other stock videos. There's no point watching this video. Actually, let me just make a disclaimer. Don't watch anything further until you watch my previous stock videos, because you're not going to understand what I'm talking about. So we've got the Dow Jones, the aftermarket chart there. And why is this so important? Well, it gives us an indication of where the gap is going to be. So if this chart closed at 456, I can put an alert, which I've already done there, that at a minimum, this needs to come and tag here. Tomorrow, next week, in a month's time, in a year's time, at some point it will come and tag that gap. And how do I know there's a gap? Well, if I go in the aftermarket, we can see from, it was what, 456, something like that. I think it was up here, somewhere there. It's come all the way down, and now we're at 5368, as you can see on the right. So there is a gap of around, let's say, 90 points. Just under, right? That therefore tells me when I come here at 5368, which is here, somewhere around here, around here, there is a gap between here, I'll draw it for you, from here to here. As in right now, there's a gap between those two levels. And so if there's a gap, at some point it's going to get filled. So naturally, my mentality is that I'm going to take a long in today's trading session, if I feel like I want to trade anyway, based on the fact that there is a gap. And very similarly, if we look at the Dow Jones, which is at 40608, right? So let's draw it together. So that's where the closes of yesterday. Now, if we go into the aftermarket, we can see right now 401.20. There is a gap between that price and that price. So this price in between needs to get filled in. And so why is that important? Because at the moment in the aftermarket, Bitcoin's getting hit and it's getting its retrace, as well as most of the alts, which is great if you're shorting like me, or you're hedging your bets, because you're basically saying, yeah, we want it to retrace after market, but when markets open, we will change our position depending on what happens. So now that we know there's a gap, or at least at this point, we've got 1 hour, 2 hour, we've got 3 hours until market opens, right? And when market opens, we will determine where this aftermarket is. And usually what happens, and this is what I mean, 8 times out of 10, you're normally good, right? When the market starts, actually, I'm going to keep that. So there's the market price, this top one, and this one is the aftermarket currently. What will happen is when markets open, let's say it starts there, it will initially go down for the first hour, or within the first hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. But once you're past the first hour or two, I will get ready to long, in my opinion, depending obviously where the levels are on the S&P and the Dow Jones, because where those levels are, especially on aftermarket hours, like if this came down to here, 5320, that's a weekly resistance. Sorry, that's a weekly support zone, which was previously resistance, that we broke through. We back tested it yesterday, and today we've come and hit it again. And so if it falls through, obviously that's terribly bad, then you could look for the next zone. But if this starts to hold, if we get there in the aftermarket hours, sorry, when market opens, because remember, this is not showing that we've come and tested 5318. 5318 is down here. Let's say 5321, right? It doesn't show this bit. It only shows this bit. It shows this bit because that's within the market open. But this bit happening in aftermarket hours, the charts are not showing this information. And so when you come here and you load this up, this is going to have a gap, let's say if it does come down here, at this particular level. And so you can see that it'll be at a weekly support zone, a demand zone. And so guys, that is basically how I look at gaps, and knowing that if there is a big gap, there is usually a big void to fill. Now, one thing that did happen over the past couple of days, which was because of a black swan event, the tariffs, etc., these gaps that were created were massive in size. Like, actually, I'm just going to show you. So, like, there's one whole gap here that still hasn't got filled. So this gap here. There's a massive gap here that still hasn't got filled. There's a third gap there, a fourth gap there, and then there's that top gap, the fifth gap right at the top. But if you saw the speed that we came down over the past couple of days, like when that got announced, we literally had a massive gap, a session in the market, next day tanked, and then had like the next day open at something crazy, like I can't remember where this was, but this was down here. I'm pretty sure it was down here. Then we filled that gap. And so what I'm trying to say to you is, if you can pick these charts before market open, like I've got my shorts already in play because I knew what was going to happen. We were going to, well, nobody knows anything, but I had a sentiment that we will go down first, and then at market open, if it's going to be a good day today, fingers crossed for longs, for bulls, we need to get a little bit of a correction, just a little bit, and then we can move up. So that's what I'm looking for by the time we reach literally 2 hours and 59 minutes. That is what I'm looking for. I'm looking at how this price here will match the market open, and if there's a big gap or not. See how this has now gone up? It's closing the gap because it's still got 400 points to go before it can go to 4608. All right, guys, that's a nice little brief one of, little tip on how you can correlate charts, and something that I look for every day.